Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is driving tech equity and inclusive innovation. And my special guest is Brenda Darden Wilkerson, President and CEO of AnitaB.org, public speaker, author, and Forbes tech contributor. Known as a trailblazer in innovative or inclusive technology, which is a very interesting topic, I'll say, Brenda has built a career that helps empower women in technology, from her early start in education to now helping run a global company, Anita.B.org, or Anita B. Let me just try this again. Let's start over. Regroup.
Okay.
One more time. I've never really heard of a tech inclusion. Yes, you got a couple of times. Tech inclusion, and you think I would because I talk about that too, but that's a really interesting topic. Okay. Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is driving tech equity and innovation. I'm sorry. Usually the days of like that. But you're very speakable. Like this is really like I was thinking for new words. I'm like, wow. Oh, okay, let me put this a little higher so if I can scan it. Okay. Well, third time's a charm. Yes, yes. Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is driving tech equity and exclusive innovation. And my special guest is Brenda Darden Wilkerson, President and CEO of AnitaB.org, public speaker, author, and Forbes tech contributor. A trailblazer in tech inclusion, Brenda has built a career that helps empower women in technology, starting with her early years in education and now spearheading and leading a global brand. She's passionate about advocacy, education, and helping underutilized or underserved markets gain access to critical technology. And she's here to share a very new, exciting project that she's working on. So thanks so much for being here today, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me. And I'm so excited to talk to you today. And it's aloha.
It's
Manahe. That's right.
I've been out here for 20 years now, and now I'm a real local now. Not Hawaiian,
Awesome.
Hama'aina.
Okay.
So to get us started, I'm so excited to hear all about what you're doing. Give us a little background on your professional journey, how you got to where you are. You went through education early on, and now you're leading this big global important company. Tell us how it all happened.
Yeah, it was nonlinear. Let me put it that way for all of our STEM friends. It was nonlinear. I actually was raised in a family of educators. My mom and dad were both educators, 4 kids. I'm number 3, very much a middle child. And they were all telling us what we were going to be. They needed a doctor, they needed a lawyer, they needed an accountant. And I don't know, that last child was sort of extra. So she kind of got to figure out what her life was going to be like. And I was supposed to be the doctor and was willing to do it. I love people. I love being in service of people. It made sense to me. So I was the little nerd that watched all of the surgeries on TV and all of that stuff while other kids were doing whatever kids did. And I was prepared to go to college and do pre-med, which I did. Um, excuse me. And so I started out as pre-med, but there was no such thing as a pre-med major at my college. So we had to pick a major that gave me my prereqs. And I picked biomedical engineering because those were my choices really at home: doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I was like, okay, let me prepare as an engineer to be a doctor. And it was just serendipitous that all engineers had to take 2 programming classes. It was my first exposure. And that's going to be really important to my story because as I said, I had these 2 educator parents. I had to be a good student. It was like, in order to live it in my house, right?
You're clearly an underachiever.
So it was like, you had to be. So I was a good student, but, based upon the way things were and still are, computer science was not in my school. There was this policy of who could and who couldn't. And they thought because of my neighborhood, there was no need for me to learn computer science. So when I all of a sudden was faced with having these programming classes, I was like one of the only women one of the only women of color. And all of the boys, because that's still the thing, had
Right.
had the background. They'd had the robots, the computers in their room, all of that stuff. And so now I persevered, obviously didn't become a doctor, decided I want to do that. And now all of a sudden there was like this crisis. What do I do with my life? All my life I thought, that was my pathway. And I thought, well, I had to struggle a little bit because it was new to me, but I kind of like those computers.
Yeah.
And so I changed and became it impacted my life. It's been my whole career to be around technology, to be a computer scientist, and to work in that way. And so that was my start. That was why I started. It was accidental. And one of the reasons I share that is because many times, especially high achieving people, think that if you change your mind, there's something horrible has happened. You're supposed to know what you want and go after what you want, and you're not really supposed to wander. But my wanderings have brought me to this place that I believe make me uniquely qualified to be able to represent the people that are in our community. And so that was really
Right.
the beginning
Yeah.
of it.
And right. And not just with business. I think also, I'm divorced. I'm happily divorced. And I think I remember when I first, it's been, I guess, 7 years, and we're close, we're friends, and we have one daughter we share, and we go on family vacations together and all that. But at the time, I remember people being like, you know, oh, I'm so sorry that you're getting divorced. And I'm like, well, no, why? But I think it's that same thing that
Yeah.
you feel like if you make a change, or if it's not what you had originally and thought it would be, that you failed. And that's not the case at all. Right. It's just things have changed. And so I really applaud that kind of thought.
It's so true, and mentioning it in both cases, your cases and mine, I think is key because there's so many people who are laboring under some failure label
Yeah.
because they changed their mind. But really, what they've done is find the pathway and the types of things that they've gone through as they've wandered. I'm going to use that term,
Yeah.
make them uniquely qualified to do what they end up doing.
Absolutely. And then how did you find yourself at anitaB.org?
Well, I had done many of the things that tech women still do these days. I had gone into tech, had started my career, and there's a stat that I think is important to share. The average woman leaves tech at 35. Yes, it's about the time when they've worked really hard, they've gained a lot of knowledge, but they kind of hit a ceiling.
Hmm.
And many times they also want to start a family. And I know for me, and this is going to tell my age, I was wearing a beeper at the time, and I couldn't imagine wearing the beeper. And, we were pregnant with our first, um, taking care of that baby. And so I left and went into education. And in education was actually where I found my passion for becoming that bridge for people who wanted to get into tech but hadn't been able to. And I did that first at a community college level. And that was um, inspiring to see people sitting in my class who were 30, 40, 50 years old, who had wanted to get in tech, but hadn't been able to. And one of the things that I learned there is I would hear them say things over and over like, oh, I'm not good at tech because I'm not good at math. Mr. Smith said, I'm not good at math. Miss Jones said, I'm not good at science. And it was impacting these 40-year-old
Yeah.
people, many of whom already had master's degrees in other things. Wasn't these people weren't, hadn't tried other things. They just hadn't, they had been somehow blocked from trying to get into tech.
Right.
And from that experience, when there was an opportunity for me to go into K-12 education, I wanted to talk to Miss Smith and Mr. Jones, talk to them and say, stop doing that. Stop telling folks that what they're not good at.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the beginning of my inspiration to really support people who should be in tech, because I believe that people who should be in tech is anybody who wants to be.
Well, we're
And
all in tech anyway, and I'm right there with you. I mean, like, and because I do a lot of speaking about digital fraud, and my book's about how to create marketing campaigns online. I've taken advantage of, and I'm just make a big statement about that too. That
yeah,
I'm tired of people saying, "Oh, I'm just not good at," and I like they almost giving themselves a pass, like
yes,
too much for me. Well, no, this is your business. This is we're all using computers. We have them. We're
that's
tapped
right.
to a computer. And to say that you're not good at it is is not
Yeah.
acceptable, right? Get good at it because this is the world we live in.
Exactly. And there are problems that only you can solve
Right.
because of your unique experiences. And that ultimately was what led me to start an initiative called Computer Science for All within Chicago Public Schools that I then spread out across the country and I actually help people in other countries do the same thing. And change education policy to make it so that students didn't go through what I went through, where they weren't allowed the introduction, just like they were introduced to English and math and science, they needed to have the introduction to technology, real technology, computer science as well. And so I was working there when this opportunity came along. And funny story, I was always telling the young kids, if you learn these skills, there's not going to be anything you can't do because it's really about creating.
Yes.
Um, and when this opportunity came along to take this job, um, I kind of didn't want to do it. I felt like I couldn't do it. I was guilty of what you just shared. I'm not good at that. How could I do that, right? But what I heard in my head was one young student say to me, "Mrs. Wilkerson, you told me that if I were to learn these skills, there'd be all these opportunities for me." And I knew from my own experience that that wasn't true. And so that's why I decided to come over to this side of the ecosystem
Wow.
to try to make a difference.
Wow. That's really amazing. I got like chills just thinking about that. That was really touching. Thanks for sharing that. And then back to, school, what you did for the schools. And I think even today, I'm wondering what happened to that initiative. Is it still out there? Because I wonder if we're going backwards. I mean, and my child's, 11 and we're here in Hawaii. So it's a little bit different. And she was in Waldorf and then COVID happened so that they closed it and she went to public school and now she's going to start private school. She started this week at an all girls school, which is really wonderful. But, they didn't really have things that, like, I remember when I was growing up, and I thought it was interesting that, here you have to pick between Spanish and French or some language, but that computers aren't considered a language.
Right.
And I just what are your thoughts on that? I mean, has these initiatives continued? Or are we thinking that they're being defunded with some of the shifts in education today?
Well, there's some scary shifts in education today,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, there's some things for us to think about in terms of how it looks like our direction is reversing.
Mhm.
There was a whole period of time because the work that I did started in 2009, and we actually got a change in our graduation requirement in 2016, such that every student had to graduate with at least one computer science class. So
Wow.
just like you graduate with, X number of biology classes and math classes, at least a student would have that introduction, right? And so, yes, we helped states. I've helped various states come to the same sort of design for their programs. I've helped elementary education, high school education, everything in between, and also work with colleges to increase their ability to receive and develop students in this very important area. And we've seen sort of an explosion of innovation. I mean, think about what's happened in tech over the last 10 years. I would like to say that those of us who worked really hard to make sure that more people who understood the problems of various segments of the society that have been ignored are part of that solution, right? And so it
Yeah.
is kind of disturbing right now to see us feel this pressure of the pushback on it.
I think it is. I think it's really scary, and then the only thing that kinda brings me a little bit of hope is that now, a computer you can get back when I was in school, it was very expensive that, for a school to get the computers, we had the computer library. Now everyone gets a Chromebook and they're just cheap,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think that that's one kinda glimmer of light, but if no one's gonna let the kids learn if no one's gonna teach them and make them do it, then will they? Is another question.
Yeah.
And with AI.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it puts the pressure back on parents.
Mm.
I also remember I have an older sister who had 2 kids, has 2 kids, and the oldest was the boy and the youngest was the girl. They were only a couple years apart. But she was our lawyer, very educated. So she listened to the counselors who said, the boys are going to be really technical. when Andrew was 3, bought Andrew an Apple computer, put it in his room.
Wow.
And so many parents did that. They did it for their boys. And so now I feel like that support, if it's not going to be in the schools, like you said, technology has become cheap. Put it in the home so that your students still have the ability to learn. Because what I noticed from watching young kids in our program, all you had to do was like make things available to them, and they would be drawn to it. And they learned very quickly that they could become creators of technology, not just users.
Absolutely. I remember when I was learning to type, and I'm dyslexic, so computer for me was also like a bridge to, I could finally read my own handwriting. I had, spell check and other tools that made it accessible for me. And that was one of the
Awesome.
reasons why I'm a big believer in fairness and equality. And I talk about that a lot too, we share that in common. But not being about being dyslexic, but about the computer being
Yes.
it's something that really changed my life. And I think millions of us, billions, have felt that way. The
Mhm.
technology has created more opportunities. It's made things fairer, safer, easier. But, as we all know, every technology is both a burden and a blessing. And those
Yes.
same tools that have made my life or career possible have also had the exact opposite effect on millions by targeting them for fraud, right? As a for
Mhm.
instance. And what are you seeing at anitaB.org? What kind of initiatives are you working on?
So we are working on initiatives that first target our community of people. See, we're AnitaB.org. Our founder's name was Anita Borg, so it's kind of clever. We
Oh,
just put
okay.
that period in there, right? That's her name. And our co-founder, Telly Whitney, we're both PhD computer scientists. And, I had the same experiences they had, back in the day, all of the technical the events that you would go to, the conferences were very heavily skewed, one way to one segment of the population. And so one of the things that they did was to create, and we still have, the Grace Hopper Celebration, which is a place where everyone can come. And it's a celebration of innovation. It's a celebration of achievements. Many times there are people who have created the technology that we depend on every single day, and no one knows that person's name. I mean, everybody knows certain people's names
Steve Jobs.
for tech. Yeah,
Yep.
everybody knows who he is,
Yeah.
right? But they don't know Gladys West. They don't know that there was a woman who's only known for her acting ability, who's actually the mother of Bluetooth. And so we
Who's that?
created Hedy Lamarr.
Oh, wow.
And if you look her up, beautiful actress. She did, and the fun part is she wasn't even college educated. Like, so also, we bust all of those myths. Everyone can do technology, everyone can innovate. And so we create a space where we have opportunities for people to get together and meet and be in community and learn from each other, to have a second, third, or fourth career that includes technology. And of course, now with AI, there's like all of this new opportunity for just about anybody who can, and everyone should learn AI, to have it not only impact their current career, but create new careers from them that we know will be coming along. So that's one of the things that we do. And we believe that community is so very important. It's how, in a field where technology changes so rapidly, you need to be in community with others so that you can continuously be learning.
Yeah.
So we create that community, right?
Otherwise,
We create,
it's so
right,
scary,
right.
it feels so isolating. I think a lot of people, they really, I hear the total, one or the other kind of, there's nothing really in the middle of AI, like yes or no, right?
Yeah.
Well, love it, or they're like, they don't want anything to do with it, right? But we both know you have to be somewhere in the middle. And it really is something you want to talk about with others. And like, oh, I tried this prompt, or
Right.
and to feel like it's more, bring it more into the day-to-day kind of work, I
Yeah.
guess.
It
Yeah.
happens for me, because of course I'm that nerd who knows how to program the computer. I mean, I came along at the time when we were dealing with the bits and the bytes.
Wow.
And so I know how to do things the hard way. And so it's been I almost had to, like, on purpose, teach myself how to do something that for many people I'm hearing feels like cheating. right? But it's all about the evolution of the workplace, the evolution of what it takes to get things done so that you can free yourself up from the mundane to use those skills and those and that background that you have to solve the bigger problems.
Absolutely.
That's what it means to me. So at AnitaB.org, we have focused ourselves on what we call responsible AI. Because just as you said earlier, that's the very thing that can be a blessing on one hand, can also be used as a tool for not such a blessing, right? And so we're bringing together communities to have conversations about how can we actually create a Hippocratic oath around AI,
Oh, wow.
AI that doesn't harm, right? How can we develop it? How can we make it so it doesn't harm the planet, doesn't harm people? And we've been bringing those conversations together and we'll continue to do so.
I really love that. I was actually just my last guest was an AI specialist, and there's just been so many things happening recent. But I don't know if you heard of that story that came out that said that, and I'm big into solar. It's one of the things I specialize in energy independence, and so I do a lot of marketing
Love
for
it.
solar. And so I read an article that said that by using the words "thank you" and "please" in AI, that it was compounding, and there was X amount of environmental impact as a result of that. So being like, I was like, oh wow, that's a lot. Like maybe I should, and I did. I started to adjust my character counts of what I asked for, and then I ran into someone else who said, absolutely not. Like that's like how AI is going to. We're training it right now. It's in the AI stage before it becomes AGI, right? AI general intelligence, and then ASI, which is, even more it's got its own governance or whatnot. And
Mhm.
if you don't train it now on why humanity is special, right? Like, and what makes humanity special, of the appreciation and the camaraderie and that, working together, and then they'll never know. And so I went back and forth. So then I started like, now I've been going and like asking it even more questions and be like, let's go. We've got this AI. And I can see a different response in my actions.
It does give a different response. And we could have a whole nother conversation about the training of the AI. And it is important. I think there's a couple things I'll say to this. A lot of people feel like we don't have a hand in training the AI, and we do. If you ask the AI a question, it's not always right because it's really just doing pattern recognition. It really isn't thinking.
No.
Okay. It's not ever really going to think, to my way of thinking. It's going to be, it's made to calculate. And so it guesses, and sometimes it guesses crazy. And so one of the things we have to do is if it gives us a crazy answer, we have to say that's not right. Like I asked AI to create for me a table around some data that I wanted, and I kind of know this data, right? And so it came back with these results that were way, 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 way skewed small, and I said that is not right. And you know what the AI said? You're absolutely right, and gave me a wholly different answer,
Oh yeah,
right?
me
And
too.
so
I'm confident I'll be like, "Well, what about this?" Like, I'll ask it, and it's like,
yeah,
You're the good thoughts on that." I'm like, "Did you double check this?" So yeah, and you're right, it's only a tool, it's a tool, but,
it's a tool.
yeah.
It's a tool, and sometimes, this is Brenda's opinion. Sometimes I think the whole concept, you do get different answers when you give it please and thank you.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not a person. And we've seen issues where people get lost in conversations with various AI when they treat it like a person. And the people who've programmed the AI have taught it to basically tell you what you want to hear.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so, you know, my mother said, your friends tell you, your enemies tell others. I mean, I don't want an AI that's pandering to me because that's manipulative. That's my opinion.
That's really interesting you say that, yeah, and then I think on that note, it makes me think also about I keep hearing about all these developers getting fired and, "Oh, then we can write code, we can write everything with AI," and it's like, you know what? I wanna, like, just come out there and say that that is not the case. I mean, like, I think you and I can agree on that, like, that
You
sure,
definitely can.
it can initiate it can make its own little plugin in its own little micro I instance.
Yeah.
But can that the second that's gonna connect to any other software or any other data point, like, you need a real developer. It's just like when WordPress came out and we're like, "Oh, it's gonna be the end of developers." No, we still need developers. What are your thoughts?
Well, just let me offer an example.
Yes.
So, there are a lot of ways that I and everybody else are using AI that I think is wonderful and very helpful, that cuts down on time. It actually saves money, at least can get you started on a process. So let's say that you're going to buy a house. You can ask the AI, what are the steps that I need to go through? What are the things that I need to do to make sure that I'm ready to buy this house? So it can give you certain information. You say, well, can you create a contract for me? I want to buy that house. Can you create the offer or contract for me? So you can create the contract. But would you really want to use it just like that? Because I already said it told me something goofy, about
Hallucinate.
something I
It's
did
like
understand.
AI
Right.
hallucinations or something,
It
right?
hallucinated terribly, so it could hallucinate part of that. So it gives you a starting point to take to a lawyer or take to a real estate person. You still need that person, this is my thought,
Yes.
that really understands that can check it. The same thing with the program. Okay, so let's say it starts you with some code. I mean, I would love to have had it back in the day when I was coding. Start it off for me, please. But the person, how are you gonna know that it really works if you don't have someone who can actually check it for the errors
Right.
and make those minute might be minute changes, but be able to make those changes, just like you would want that lawyer to be able to say, "Yes, that's right." So, I know there are a bunch of people who want us to get to the place where we, like, don't need people's intervention. I don't really, as long as we're people, I think we need people to intervene on things that are actually impactful to our lives, which is everything.
I agree. I agree. And then some people are like, "Oh, with all these developers now, they're out at work and they're, working at Starbucks." And I think,
Yeah.
that's really unfortunate and it's frightening for what I think about as education and in general. And then who are those ones that are getting fired? Is it all the women? When there's like
Well, that's another question, right? Who is the first out the door when these things happen? But what I want to offer is, I think we're in this experimental stage. There's this thing called, and I'm sure your people that you've talked to about AI have shared this. There are AI summers and there are AI winters. The winter is when they found, oh, we had this assumption that this worked a certain way, and oh, it didn't kind of work that way. Let's go back to the factory. Yeah, go back inside and work this out. Let's not talk about this till we fix it. And then the AI summer is when we think everything is great. We're like talking about AI like it's the best thing. It's perfect. Everybody is making decisions based upon it being this perfect thing. So we're in that stage. And so we'll have to see, right? And it's just like with anything else when you innovate, you have to iterate. You try it, you test it. Hopefully you test it before you put it into production. But you try it and
what's yes.
and you fix it. It's going to be an iterative process. So I think a lot of the things that we think are true right now, will I'm in a more of a wait and see mode to see, maybe we need fewer, maybe not none. What the number really is for the number of developers we need, I think is yet to be seen.
Yeah. I think, there's always going to be a need. I mean, I built my business on WordPress and that's how I first got into online. I went to advertising business school, but I, made a website for someone in WordPress years ago, and that's what got me, but I don't write any code, right? But I build websites all the time, and I'm now a digital leader in digital
Mhm.
marketing because of that entry point. So I think it's the same thing that like, there's these things make it more accessible, but it's not going to eliminate the need
Right,
for this expert that you're talking about.
right.
Right. Yeah. And so what other, tell me about, this idea of tech inclusion.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's very simple. It is, I think back in the early days of the current stage of technology, there was this concerted effort to sort of type who could do computers. And it became a very narrow segment of the population who could be the ones to innovate around technology. And that's a little bit challenging because, first of all, as you're trying to create innovation around all the things that tech can do for people, you need a broader band of people, not a narrower band of people, so that problems get solved on a regular schedule. Also, it's as I said earlier, I believe the people who are closest to a problem are the people who really should be the ones to design the solution for the problem. So if you've got a very narrow band of the population, maybe they're all one age, or maybe they all went to one school, or all something, right? They all drink the same beer. I don't know, whatever you want to make up, right? Then you're probably going to leave out a large swath of the populations having um, their problem solved. There's a great book called, and I just forgot it. It's going to come back to me, where it talks about the fact that most women are missing from a lot of the data. And everybody's heard about the seatbelt situation, and I get mad every time I get in because that seatbelt comes across my neck. They really didn't design cars for people with bosoms. The seatbelts were not made to go across, right?
Heard that. Maybe because I don't have very big boobs. Maybe I'd never thought about it.
Well, I didn't at one point, but anyway, so you're sitting there and it's because the people who designed the cars were not thinking about short people or, very large people or people with various body parts. You could say the same thing about certain equipment that is strapped onto bodies. What about people who don't have arms? Um, how does that impact their ability to use that technology?
Right.
And so when you start to think about inclusive technology, for me, it's about including everyone who needs to have technology serve them. And in order to do that, the simplest way is to have people who are closest to the problems of that segment of society who can say, here's the problem. I have some ideas for the solution, at least have them at the table. That's what happened for me with computer science for all. I could understand that by the time I got to that district and the same situation existed as had existed in my high school 30 years ago, I recognized it right away. Most people were like, "What are you even talking about? What's the problem? I don't see it," because they hadn't experienced it.
Right.
I had experienced struggling in college because I hadn't been introduced to computer science because it wasn't in my school. Now I end up with a district. I'm in a district that's the third largest in the country with 176 high schools, and only 6 high schools had computer science.
Wow.
Right? So that's not preparing tomorrow's workforce. That's not preparing people to have choices. One of the things that I taught my kids from the time that they could listen to me, I told them I wanted you to grow up and live free in a free country, which is an interesting concept that I thought that at
Yeah.
the time. Anyway, and I said so I want you to be free, and the definition of freedom is choices.
Mhm.
So I would say to them, what's the definition of freedom? Choices, mommy. And so all I wanted was for these hundreds of thousands of students to have the choice to go into technology if they wanted to.
Wow.
And people would say, well, they probably are not going to be programmers. And I was like, yeah, they're probably not going to be biologists either, but you make them take 4 years of biology.
Right.
We're probably not going to be chemists.
To be a linguist, and I speak French and Spanish.
Right.
All right. I mean, I never even,
Right.
it just, it makes, I mean, and on that same thread, it makes me feel like I do some work with some credit counseling service here and like a nonprofit, it's helping them out. And it was just shocking about the literacy of just anyone that was like not even really gender specific. They had no idea how to balance a checkbook. They
Right.
didn't understand how interest rates were calculated. They knew nothing about taxes. And here you are, I'm thinking to myself, why is this not something that is taught in school?
Exactly.
This is basic knowledge that people need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. To be a citizen.
Right.
Right? To be a citizen, and I'm not against chemistry or biology or language, none of that. That makes a good citizen. Those are ingredients, that type of knowledge to help people be part of society. But so does their need to understand their finances.
Yep.
Think about how many people wouldn't be in debt today or maybe not defaulted if
Or not
someone
even
had taught
themselves. I mean, like, it's a big house suicide in children is when they go to college, they get a credit card. I mean, he was shocked when I heard of it, and then they think it's insurmountable debt, and they're so just embarrassed that
Right.
I mean, it's just
Right. And they just needed the knowledge. They just needed, And I could tell you it doesn't take a lot. I could tell when we went from no technology education to a little bit of technology education, not only did their math scores go up, which is what everybody cares about, their
Right.
literacy scores went up, which everybody cares about. Because they thought, well, what did the two have to do with each other? They're very intertwined. Right. So we're impacting them in many, many positive ways. We also are teaching them something that is key to our lives. There isn't anything that isn't touched by technology. When you sit at the stoplight, that stoplight is controlled by some technology. When you turn the water on your faucet, it's controlled by technology. Everyone needs to understand it and be able to be confident enough to purchase it for themselves, purchase it for their company, make decisions about how to use it. And so that to me is what inclusive means. I want to include everybody
Yeah.
in the conversation because everybody's going to be impacted.
And since you guys are doing global work, what are we looking at here in terms of, underdeveloped countries? And I mean, I know that I was reading a study which is so amazing about people about how just having a cell phone you could, change people's hearing. And it was like in Africa, I mean, it was a huge deal because,
Yeah.
it didn't take much for them to have a
Right.
phone and then they could have like a device.
Right.
What kind of trends are you seeing there and how it's impacting them?
So, first of all, what we do and what's really important to me is that we don't just have a one size fits all mentality towards how technology works. Even geographically here in this country, there are things that have their needs that are different in rural areas than in urban areas. There are things that are different, say in the Bay Area in New York, where if there's a big concentration of tech, then probably in Hawaii, though I've got some buds at the University of Hawaii, which I'm hoping they invite me over soon and maybe you and I can hang out. But anyway, um, so we are very sensitive to regional needs. So when we think about the world, like for instance, we have a large community in India. Um, the women there, um, certain parts of the population, because it's a large population, still turns out to be a lot of women who are highly educated. The challenge isn't necessarily the education, it's the work. Whereas many times here in this country, it's do we open the door for women to get educated in technology? It's the same thing in the Middle East. The majority of the engineering degrees in some places are earned by women,
Wow.
but it's the work, the ability to go to work and work equally. That's the challenge. And so what we do is we go in and we work with each region on the challenges that they have to be able to solve the problems for their population, which again is what technology is about. So we have to be knowledgeable of the needs of the different locations, which is um, ever changing, right? Because our needs here in the US just changed over the last year.
Yeah.
And so we're always studying and talking to our customers, and our customers are universities, their companies, their because we serve technologists where they are educated, where they work, and where they might be funded from all the way from college into the C-suite.
That's really, really amazing work you're doing. And tell me, I know we're kind of getting to the end here of our time. I know you have an exciting book coming out, Pockets for All. Tell us about it. What's the vision there?
Yeah, so it's a play on the initiative that I was part of in the district called Computer Science for All, which I thought kind of speaks for itself. That means everybody should have it. It shouldn't be like only certain schools or only certain people with a GPA or all of those walls that were put up around who could. And so to me, it reminded me of pockets. And one of the things that I've always said, I think you'll like this. If I were ever queen, one of the first things I would mandate is that all women's garments would have working pockets because so many of our garments don't have pockets, or they have these funny little make believe pockets, or the pockets are useless to the point where if you put something in them, you lose
Well,
it.
no.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you
Right.
don't lose it. Oh my God, this is
Right.
the worst.
Right? So you
Yeah.
don't have capacity. So to me, it was similar to the way we see who can do certain tasks in our world that really makes our world a better place to live. If there were more opportunity for more people, we didn't put barriers up around who could and who couldn't, the capacity for us all would increase. And so that's why I've named the book Pockets for All. And it goes into the history of pockets. There's a whole interesting history around pockets in
Really?
men's garments. Yes. Like a men's garment. I remember growing up, my dad, he always wore nice suits. And there was a pocket for there was a pocket over here. There was a pocket over there. There's a pocket here, just pockets everywhere. And
Yeah.
my mother wore nice clothing too, but she'd have these little fake pockets on the front of her suit jacket. I was like, why don't her pockets work? And he's,
Huh.
seemed really confident all the time. He had some place to put things. And, she had to carry a purse and a bag with all of our crap in it. So to me, it's the comparison between who has the capacity, who has the ability to have an impact on the world, and based on who's allowed
Yeah.
and who hasn't been allowed, and how we could all our lives could be richer if we all had the pockets, all the big pockets like
And I just
dad
makes
had.
me think about this concept of space, like this, that in that space is the infinite potential, right? And it
That's right.
may just be a little pocket, but there's infinite potential in that pocket.
That's right. That's right. But you got to have it. It can't be fake and it can't be sewn shut.
Right. There's no space in there, and you can't put nothing. Yeah.
That's
Wow,
right.
that's fascinating. And when's it gonna come? When are you? I know you're self-publishing is, to tell us about how are people gonna find it? How are we gonna get in touch with you and follow this mission?
Well, you can find me on anitab.org. So anitab.org. And of course on LinkedIn. And I'm going to self-publish at the end of the fall. And so I'll put it out on social media and make it available to people. I'm really excited to share because it's out of my experience of understanding how to create capacity for more people.
Wow, that's really, really exciting. And is there anything else that you want to mention about, I don't know if people want donations. Were you impacted by any of these cuts? Was your organization that I know you don't want to talk about politics, but, are there other things that are going on, that you want to talk about?
Well, we didn't have any government contract. We had no government money, so there was no government money to lose. But we, of course, like all nonprofits, have been impacted by sort of the changing wind around how people, what good work is in nonprofit work. And we know that our work is very good work. We are very supportive of the tech industry in general, which serves us all, right? So we definitely take donations. You can donate at anitab.org. We have two large conferences coming up that are our major fundraisers. They're called the Grace Hopper Celebration, after the mother of software, Grace Hopper, Admiral Grace Hopper, in Chicago this year in the U.S., November 2nd through 4th.
Oh, perfect.
And in India, oh no, but it's global warming, honey. It's balmy, balmy.
Okay, I remember being in the Chicago ones, and it was so cold. It was
Oh yeah.
wind was like blowing. I was like, wow, this is what they call the windy state. Like I
Oh,
knew.
yeah. I came in when I was in Chicago because I went to university there. And the first winter, it went below zero and stayed for 6 weeks. So you're right. But it doesn't do that anymore. So don't be afraid, y'all. Come on over, visit us. And then the second conference is in India, and it's in Bangalore. And it will be November 2nd through the 4th. And so we'd love to see you there. And we'd love to hear from you. I also have a podcast, and Anna, I can't wait for you to come and visit me on my podcast. It's called Be the Way Forward, the letter B and the way forward. And so we'd love to get to know you. Please reach out.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thanks so much for being here. And to all my listeners, please join me next week as I interview another industry expert and a topic to help you succeed on and offline. Thanks so much for subscribing. We're almost at our goal for this quarter of 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. So keep liking the streams, whatever you're listening to, Spotify, Apple, iHeart. Really appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the pixels. Aloha.
Aloha.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Covert Code podcast. To stay up to date with all our future episodes, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means everything to us. Please take a moment to leave a review and share our content with your friends and colleagues on social media. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more digital innovators like yourself. See you in the pixels. Aloha.